Good morning, everyone. Thank you for running a little behind, but I think we should have plenty of time. My name is Hyland. I am on council along with Crave, and the council decided to survey the membership to gauge our engagement. We had a visioning process that happened a number of years ago. Before we had, a lot has changed. Our pastoral staff has changed, COVID has changed, lots has changed. And so the council, taking more of that strategic look of what we should be doing as a church, before implementing what some of the visioning thoughts were pre all of those things, we're taking a step back to say, well, where are we now and what should we be doing? And one of those elements to inform that decision is a survey. We thought it would be good to reach out to membership. So we are going to present the results that we got today. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's a good summary.
I'll be your Vanna.
Oh, okay, great. So Laura kind of highlighted the beginning, but our purpose of doing this survey, just to reiterate, was to take a step back from what we had visioned 5-ish years ago, and kind of take a pulse of like, where are we right now? What is the congregation like now compared to where we were 5 years ago? So just our little disclaimer, this is not statistically analyzed information. It's not scientific. We got 153 responses out of the numbers from 2021 was there were 1,135 confirmed members of the church. So 10 to 20% of people who belong to the church actually replied. So again, probably not reflective of the whole congregation, but reflective of those 153 people. There was an option to include your name. We're reporting the results anonymously, so your name is not connected to any of what you're seeing up here. And it's data right now. We haven't analyzed or interpreted it. We're just sharing the results with you now. So again, what I said, we're sharing with you what people have said. And we want you to be engaged, and we want you to be helpful in the council's strategic planning for the next years of the church. We also want to kind of gauge if the responses that we got are in line with what you thought they might be, and give you a chance to discuss a little bit further.
And then the opportunities for further discussion in the new year, we plan to have some small group listening sessions. Some people like to write, some people like to speak, some people like to do both. But a way to dig into some of these areas that we think need a little more exploration, those will be coming January, February.
Before we go any further, can you hear us without a microphone? Is that good enough?
We're seeing thumbs
okay,
from the
great.
back. All right.
Just thought I'd check.
Is there anyone that would like?
Yeah, anyone who would like a microphone. Okay.
You know, a microphone is always good. People are sometimes shy, I think, about
That's fine. I can use a microphone.
About saying that.
I'm testing. Ooh, there we go. All right, Carly.
Nice.
Yeah. Even better.
Feels so fancy now. All right, so just a little bit of demographic information to start. Of the 153 responses, this is a little small on the screen, but 102 of them were females, 48 were males. Overall, how long have you been active or engaged with St. Matthew's? 100 of the 153 was 15 plus years have been involved. And then we dropped down to 37 people who were involved for 5 to 15 years, and the remaining 16 were less than 5 years. And how old are you? The majority of people who filled out the survey are aged 45 and above. 16 people under the age of 45 filled it out, but you can see the red, yellow, and green wedges were the above 45 population.
And you'll note nobody from 18 to 24 did, but you know, we can't really interpret it as to why. I just want to point out that this is a older skewed membership response.
So how well do each of these phrases describe St. Matthew's? The first one was St. Matthew's is spiritually vital. The yellow is very well, and the red is somewhat. So the vast majority of people felt like we were somewhat to very well spiritually vital, which is exciting information. Meaningful and engaging worship services, again, most people said very well. Is St. Matthew's excited about our future? A little bit more split, about half of somewhat and half of very well. A few didn't know. And then has a clear sense of mission and purpose. Again, kind of a split answer of very well to somewhat. I don't know if I should take questions as they go or at the end, so if you have questions, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. And on the same question, how does it describe St. Matthew's? Helps people deepen their relationship with God. Again, very well was the majority here. A few more somewhats. And same with helps members live out their faith in daily life and meets the needs of my family. And a few more somewhats on willing to change to live its mission and purpose. So pretty good, I'd say.
I think generally speaking between these two, if you look at where the yellow and the kind of that orange, the mid-tier, in what the church is doing, it's basic blocking and tackling. We are getting a good response back from folks. We have a lot of other things to dig into. There's definitely work to be done. Especially in the excited about our future and clear sense of mission and purpose. I think we'd like to see that more people understanding that very well, or that we are doing that very well. So there's this will inform is a way to help understand what we're going to do with this. It's a way to help us inform where the council and the staff should be focusing efforts to address some of these areas.
Yes. In terms of meets the needs of my family.
Can you speak up, please?
Sure. It meets the needs of my family. Maybe I'm jumping ahead. Were there any written responses that gave indication about what would better meet the needs of people's families?
Sure. Kind of. So we didn't, what we did is we had multiple, to try to facilitate a broad range and then more detail. We gave kind of easy click answers for these. But then we asked four questions. We asked, what should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we continue to keep, start, stop, and continue? And then other challenges faced. So there is more information about this coming later, but it may not align one-to-one with this particular response. Oh, question.
Question. So I know this is broken down based on the entire response.
That's okay.
So I know this is broken down based on the entire response of everyone. Do you have it broken down even further by age?
Not yet. We could look at it that way. There is a way to pivot the data. For this purpose, we did not. But that is another way. The question was, do we have this by age? We do. We can cross that data, but we haven't done that yet. So this is just the whole population.
And that meets the needs of my family was kind of intentionally broad because everybody's definition of their family is going to be different. So I know that doesn't give you a lot of detail of specific things that we're doing for your specific family, but that was the point. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. On your first slide, you implied there were over 2,000 adult members here?
No. 1,000.
Oh, I read that wrong. So how about the full membership number?
With children, you mean?
With children?
I looked this information up in the annual report from last night, so I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I want to say it was closer to 1,500 with children of all ages, but I assumed that most people's 7-year-olds weren't going to fill out the survey, so we went with the confirmed members number. Anything else, right? Okay. So this slide shows in the past 12 months how often have you essentially participated in something that St. Matthew's does. So the first column on the left is attended worship. The orange is 1 time a month or more. So the most frequent. Green is most months, and yellow is at least 2 to 3 times. Red and blue are once or never. So the majority of people who filled out the survey attend St. Matthew's most of the time throughout the year. The second column is participated in personal devotions, prayer, or study. Again, a majority of people have done that at least a few times. There are a few more I don't do that kind of responses, or very rarely. The third column, attended education or fellowship events. Again, most people have done it a few times at least, but the numbers of most to frequently are shrinking kind of as you go. But a larger percent of people have gone at least a few times. And then volunteered at or with St. Matthew's is the last column, and you can see that's a little less common as time goes on. The never and the once categories are a little bit larger.
For the question, how often have you participated in personal devotions, prayer, or study, was that asked specific about with St. Matthew's, or was that in your life?
In your life.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the last 12 months, how often have you, the blue column is donated money to St. Matthew's, and the red is donated beyond my pledge, so given an extra amount of money at some point. So a lot of people, you can see on the right, give once a month or more, and it appears that as people give less frequently, regularly, they tend to give above what they said they would give more often. Does that make sense? It's kind of a hard one to explain.
The other thing it doesn't say is how, it doesn't contemplate how people intended to pledge. Some people give once a year. We're getting a little feedback. Oh, there we go. Is it on? Oh, how about I turn that off? There we go. Okay. Now we're cooking. But your financial pledging, it could be you give quarterly, or you give monthly, or you give. So this doesn't, what we were trying to get at here is you can be engaged personally, you can be engaged monetarily, you can be engaged in a lot of different ways. So we're really just looking at not like, where do you fall in this column, but are people engaged in multiple ways, are they engaged in multiple ways? So I wouldn't pay as much attention to like the once a month or more is only meaningful if that's what someone was intending. So just a point of reference.
I think an automatic withdrawal has dramatically changed giving patterns. And I would be interested in knowing the percentage of the congregation who does automatic withdrawal and those who put it in the plate. I think that would be really helpful.
I think we have some of that information. I want to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, about 50% of people who donate to St. Matthew's use Simply Giving, which is, or higher. Maybe 60 use Simply Giving. So that is, we're trending that direction.
You have a block after, but
Okay.
there are some of us who use the QCDs, the Qualified Charitable Deductions, whether it's once a year or twice a year, and that's never listed as like an option when we fill out our pledges.
Oh, that's good information to know. She said that people who use, I'm sorry, what was the acronym?
QCDs,
QCDs,
Qualified Charitable Deductions.
Deductions, is not ever listed as an option like on your pledge form. So that's good information for us to know.
For people over 70.
For people over 70. That is specific for, okay. Learn something new every day. I did not know that.
Wait till you get to be 70.
All right, in the last 12 months, how often have you, on the left, had meaningful spiritual conversations? This is again, another way to judge, not judge, that's the wrong word.
Assess.
Evaluate, assess, yes.
What's the word for?
Yes, your engagement, kind of on a spiritual level and your participation, I guess, in church. So overall, pretty even across the board with the exception of at least 2 to 3 times is a little more frequently listed for having meaningful spiritual conversations. Otherwise, some people do it a lot and some people never do it, and somewhere in between. The middle section is invited others to church, which the blue on the left is never, and the orange on the right is once a month or more. We did talk about, when we talked about this at council, of people are kind of have their own cohort of people. So once you've exhausted your friendship group, you can, that's, maybe you invited them 2 years ago and that was it, and you've run out of people to ask. Or something in that, you have a limited number of people perhaps. So, and then on the right, greeted a visitor attending worship. Some people appear to be on top of it. Most months or multiple times a month, they are greeting people. And then the 3 columns on the right are a few times or once or never. Comments, questions, thoughts? Great. And then how well does St. Matthew's, the blue is seek out and use the gifts of members of all ages, genders, and backgrounds. Most people feel they somewhat to very well use a variety of volunteers, essentially, and include everybody for their gifts that they have. And then the red is how well does St. Matthew's build strong, healthy relationships amongst its members? Again, somewhat to very well is the vast majority. I don't remember where we were splitting off, but I can keep talking.
Yeah, you got it.
How does St. Matthew's receive and include new people? The blue is at least 50% here, and it is welcomed and are actively engaged into the life of St. Matthew's. That's great as an inclusive congregation. The green, which is the next majority, is encouraged to join but not actively integrated into the life of St. Matthew's. And then there's fewer for orange is visitors of all kinds are vigorously pursued, welcomed, and encouraged to join and integrate into the life of St. Matthew's. And yellow is quickly welcomed and invited to pursue positions of leadership. So overall, I would say welcoming.
I think the one trend line you start to see, I think, through this is maybe working on being more intentional about reaching out to people, whether it's back here, which is greeted a member, a visitor, or here in terms of welcoming people into groups and leadership roles, or just welcoming people in and bringing, instead of just coming to church, being a part of church. So it does feel that it's not, I don't think we're seeing anything terribly problematic, but the trend line is that I would love to see that somewhat be increased, or this green shifting to blue. So.
And then relationships within St. Matthew's can be described. This is kind of a split question. Red is friendly across affinity groups. So you're different. Everyone's probably seen everyone has a different pod of people around. So friendly across those groups. Orange is there's small groups of close friends. So tight within your affinity group, I guess. And then yellow is friendly within the affinity group, such as age, gender, identity, class, race, language, education, sexual orientation. And then blue is a community of faith embracing relationships across affinity and ideological lines, and a couple isolated individuals and families. So this one is kind of hard to interpret because everybody feels like we're friendly in different ways, either within or across different groups, but just something to think about as how we perceive ourselves as a welcoming and friendly congregation of how far are we being friendly or welcoming across groups, I suppose. And then this question talks about worship specifically. On the left, worship is filled with a sense of God's purpose, very well, in a few somewhats. It is joyful, again, very well, nurturing of people's faith, and then welcoming to visitors and makes me want to invite others to participate in worship. Still very well, but a few more somewhats in how we perceive our worship.
And this we purposely asked about, you know, the worship service you attend most commonly. So I think overall here we'll see, and I'm going to do a little preview. But there was a lot of suggestions for alternative worships services, whether that's like an entire revamp or a change in time. There's lots of things there, but I want to anchor us in the worship service people attend, the things that we're looking at with, you know, are you leaving with a sense of God's purpose? Is it joyful? Is it all of those things? Seeing that yellow dominate those responses, I think is something to pay attention to. Okay, so all right. Then our free response questions. We did a little. Pastor Karen put together. By we, I mean she. But what we did here in the free responses is took a look at all the responses that came in for this is what should we keep doing, and tried to bucket them. So please note that if you provided comments here, we've got the comments, but we tried to put categories in to see what the themes were. So and the keep doing was much longer. We had a lot more responses in the keep doing than in the other areas. So that's not to say there's not work to be done, but we don't want to ignore the things that we are doing well and people really value. So this music and welcoming, please excuse for anyone who's grammatical, my mother would be absolutely beyond herself that these are, I put the words together as phrases. It was the only way I could make the word art work, actually for Karen to make the word art work, but so we had to smush them together, otherwise it would say like summer and service somewhere else. Does that make sense? Anyway.
The bigger the word, the more often it was mentioned.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally missed the boat there. Yeah, so music being the biggest word on here is the response we saw most often, our music ministry in one way, shape, or another. So some of those, it doesn't say, it's not telling you the details behind that, I have that, but the music was a common theme in what we should keep doing, that we are a welcoming congregation. The summer service was another, like having one summer service, that got a lot of responses, especially considering maybe people are hearkening for summer in November. I don't know, but summer service was an area. So the innovating, there's been a lot of changes that have happened, and change is hard, and change doesn't always go. You don't know what you can't anticipate how it's always going to be received. But I really appreciate, personally, I mean that's my editorial, but a lot of people spoke about trying new things, trying the prayer ground, trying the narrative lectionary, so all of those things I bucketed into this innovation concept of tweaking things and trying new things. Weekly communion was a very, very common theme that was well received. Our children's programs, the narrative lectionary was mentioned. So let me just stop rattling off words at you. What does this resonate? Any comments?
I like seeing welcoming very large there.
You like seeing welcoming very large, yeah. I think that, yep.
Having done 8 years of interim ministry myself, youth ministry was always big, and I don't see it on there, other than children's.
Oh, youth ministry, yeah, I put it as children's programming, but yeah, the youth programming.
After confirmation, youth ministry, people that seem to want to move out for a while.
So you're saying post-confirmation. Yeah, children should be seen, I guess, through like the Sunday school confirmation period. I'm guessing that that's what that means, is it's not, we're missing, this is not representative of post-confirmation young adults. Okay, so then what should we start doing? Surprise! Yeah, lead pastor, finding that lead pastor was, it was the highest ranking response for what should we start doing. In fact, a lot of people, I took it out of the stop responses, like, I don't know, there's lots, it's interesting when you fill these things out, we welcome all your responses and all, but there were answers, I was like, wait, that's a start and that's a stop. So anyway, but the lead pastor is a representative of across all the questions of whatever, wherever this came through. Lead pastor is on the top of minds of everybody. Yeah. So, so lead pastor, our worship alternatives for start doing. This is where I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of different ideas out there, and there were a few that change the music, do a contemporary service, do a Saturday service, so there was a lot of food for thought, but I didn't see one specific key area. But that we're going to look at that in more detail because worship alternatives was a visioning consideration 5 years ago. So we'll have to see, and again, this is 150 people and 150 plus. So but worship alternatives, I want to make sure people are reading that in a very broad sense. It could be anything from a change in time to a change in how we sit in that service. And actually, if we go back, I think traditional worship at the bottom was what we should keep doing. You see it at the bottom? So there's a lot more to parse through here, but just so you're seeing the themes of what people responded by. If we go back to start, expand leadership. This is a common comment about that it seems like the same people are in leadership positions. Can we grow that field? Growth of membership, keep growing St. Matthew's. Small groups, this is another, so I need to find a better phrase for small groups because we joined, my husband and I joined after the small group era or initiative. And I know I've come to understand that means something to a lot of people that went through that. So smaller groups or groups of small people, I don't know. Can I get a word for? But small, but what I'm seeing and starting here, what I saw in the responses, people want to engage on a smaller scale. There we go, a small scale engagement. That could be through a small group initiative. It could be through affinity groups. I mean, it could come along. I think there's a lot of thought to be put in here, but there's a hunger and a desire to get together in smaller, what did you say? Populations. We got them all going now. So we have small scales. So small groups, small scale, smaller engagement was a big area. Anything else people see here that want to dig into or surprised? Yes.
Why don't they call it lead pastor? Can't they just say he's a pastor, and that's it?
Why not say the lead pastor?
Yeah.
Well, that's because I called it. So people who want to find we call it a senior, the actual terminology in our constitution is a lead pastor.
Because when I started going to church, it was just the pastor. It was not lead pastor or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, since we have more than one,
it's kind of dumb in a way.
Well, we need a pastor. That's how about it. We need a pastor.
I just think it's dumb. Maybe I'm too old. That's why.
Well, and that's just our terminology for lead versus associate versus So, but I think the message at the core is the same.
I mean, I was on the call committee when we got Pastor Margaret,
Yeah.
So we didn't say lead pastor or anything like that. But
she wasn't the lead pastor.
No, she wasn't, but we didn't call it anything.
Well, we need again. We need our pastoral staff to be staff. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I think I have an observation, and
Yeah.
maybe this is just my viewpoint.
I'm thinking about the question about like, have you engaged in spiritual conversation? Have you prayed? And a lot of these things seem to be focused on worship and like the space of church as opposed to spiritual growth. Is that, I'm wondering if other people see that theme, or if changes in the sanctuary lead to spiritual growth, or
Yeah, so
what are we looking for in outcomes?
well, I think it's probably probably the way the question was posed. So the comment was, this feels very like in our church worship focused, not like spiritual growth and some of the other things we were asking earlier. The question that we asked was, I'm going to read it. Hold on. It says, where is it? What should St. Matthew's start doing that it currently is not? So unless someone thought to say, help me with my spiritual growth, like I think it's a good observation. The question was about programmatic or what the church can do for you, and that we didn't see those responses, but I think it might be the way that we posed that question. So good, that's a good observation. Yes.
I think the small group thing and the spiritual growth part, what I've been reading is, especially with the pandemic and the growth of social media, people are feeling disconnected. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing here is a desire for connection, and a desire for connection on a small scale that people aren't feeling. The pandemic scared the heck out of everybody. It disassociated people. My children are working in their homes and they're not going to work. You know, they're not feeling together. And so I think what we need to do here, what I'm seeing in the survey, is that need for connection and a need for a spiritual connection, but really getting together as humans rather than as machines. And if we can foster that, I think especially young people need that, because they're not getting mentored at work and all, because they're not at work. So we really need to find a way to reach out to that. And I am disturbed, but not surprised by the fact that all of us old people answered the survey and not the young people. Yeah. We need to find a way to reach out to that group.
I 100% agree with you. With that survey that was given out a couple of years ago, looking at what the population is of those under the age of 45, I really think it's important to break it down by age to see what these results are. Because as a parent that has younger children and looking at the decrease of our youth programs in general, why is that? Yeah. I mean, personally, I don't feel like this shows that, because we didn't get the results from that age group. And as you said, it was an older skewed membership response. So, you know, sitting here and knowing that we responded to it and hearing like, it's all good, like I don't feel like it's 100% reflective of that younger population.
I think you're right. I wholeheartedly agree, and our hope and our intent was potentially with these smaller group discussions, we can target, you know, what a thought would be to, during Sunday school hour, have one during Sunday school hour and have those parents come and meet for 45 minutes and just share similar thoughts. It doesn't have to be every question, but I think that's a good.
But I guess my question is, how do you get those parents in? Because I'm guilty of it. I'll drop my child off and I'll go run errands because, you know, or we have parents that are out running around the neighborhood to get their exercise in for the week. So how do we get those younger generations into meetings like this? I mean, I'm so excited by how many people are here, but I don't see a lot of people under the age of 45 here. Yeah. So how do we get that group in here?
I think that's the ultimate question that many churches everywhere are asking. Yeah. So.
Yes?
Yeah, I think everything on this little last track here of the young folks, that's a national phenomenon. You read about it almost daily. The young adults don't participate, and I think it's a bigger challenge and to study further, not try to solve it yourself. There's got to be other lessons learned out there how to deal with that.
I think it would be interesting to look at how many families have two working parents also, you know, and separate and find out if there are still stay-at-home parents at all, even. Or aren't there? Yeah, you know.
There's a lot of ways we could slice and dice this data. I want to be, yeah, I think the themes I'm hearing are we need to better understand our kind of 45 and younger population, and be working on engagement in a smaller settings, and targeting people that may not. I think what all the things that were said about COVID, and what it also did is it broke habits, and so it broke a ton of habits, and so building that habit back in a meaningful way is it's work, but that's I think the church's role is to try to find ways to bring people in and meet those needs and nurture those relationships and build that engagement. I mean, so I hear to all of it, and we have a lot of work to do. Other questions or comments? Oh yeah.
I just have a comment. As this might not be a surprise, I'm under the age of 45, and I do not have children. So I do not identify as a parent, as someone who's bringing a young person. So as folks are asking about how do we bring in young people, how do we engage beyond confirmation, I personally would love if after people ask me the question, they listen to my response and then respond to that with action. It is a nationwide question, and there are people that are willing to engage in that, so, yeah.
When I read what the kids who are being confirmed write down about how they've been touched in this place, it's by their witness outside the church. It's when they're going on these mission trips, what I sense is that kids and young people are hungering for purpose and outside the congregation, where they're feeling like they're making a difference. And that's just something I don't hear I don't hear that mission focus. What are we doing to make the community, the world a better place? And I think that emphasis is very, very gospel.
Yeah.
Discipleship going out.
Yeah, my personal feeling is that I notice it in the quilt ministry. We do receiving blankets for the baptism, and I've got 2 boxes full of receiving blankets and a drawer, because there aren't the baptisms there used to be. And the other thing is, I don't see the young members joining the church. They're not actively seeking out becoming a member of St. Matthew's. And I don't know if that's because, again, in my opinion, it's because of lack of leadership, the lead pastor.
No. So the commentary, so I think, the commentary is that we are lacking new members and younger members, and I think, and we've talked about this in council, I think to emphasize it's a St. Matthew's problem, but it's not just a St. Matthew's problem. So it's, I don't have enough information to draw as to why if people aren't joining because we don't have a lead pastor. We've actually had a strong interim pastor for 2+ years. So someone new to the congregation, if they walked in, I don't know if they would realize that we don't have a lead pastor. Well, in a moment we won't, but an interim lead. But it is critical to realize that this is a problem across churches, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem for us personally, but it's a big problem for the church, the church across the country. So trying to don't read too much into what's actually happening in St. Matthew's. That's important to consider, and we can control what we can control. But we also have a bigger problem, there's bigger issues at play. Yeah.
I also think, yes, we definitely need a pastor, call them whatever you will, but I think the focus here on programming and what we're doing for the people who are here in the church right now and the people we want to bring in is also very important, because having another pastor come into the church may or may not flip the switch. You know, we need to be providing something for people to want to come here.
Yeah. Something that resonated with me, a year plus ago, and I'm looking at council numbers, but we had this, and it's going to sound, I'm almost hesitant to say because it sounds so elementary, but we're St. Matthew's. We are St. Matthew's. We need a leader, but we are St. Matthew's, and we haven't rested on our laurels because we don't have a person in that position of lead pastor. The church is moving, the church is responding, the church is, I mean, we do need leadership, absolutely, but I don't want to diminish the fact that everybody here, this program that just happened, this beautiful, we are St. Matthew's and it's moving and we're, so just the lead pastor, yes, or pastor, we'll just say pastor. The pastoral positions, we need leadership, but we're not waiting to fix and address these issues for that person. We as a congregation need to take responsibility. Yes.
Okay, I'm wondering, we started coming here about the time that shortly before COVID, when Pastor Chris was still here and very much the youth man.
Yeah.
And I remember how strong the youth program seemed at that point, and it doesn't seem as strong now. And perhaps it's difficult to assess because COVID happened right when he left. But I'm wondering if you have a handle on that. Maybe you don't need a lead pastor as much as you need a youth pastor.
So, yeah, the commentary was that our youth program, our youth was very strong. I'll say with Pastor Chris and prior to COVID, I think I don't have a great root cause as to why our numbers are down. But our confirmation numbers, I believe, are very strong. Our Sunday school numbers are not what they were, but our confirmation numbers, they're healthy. So kids are out there. We absolutely would love to have that. Well, we just had this beautiful, vibrant program, but there's more that can be done. I don't have enough information to tell you the root cause as to why we're here. My speculation is two things. My kid, actually I can speak from my own perspective. I have 3 children. One that just got confirmed last year, one is in confirmation now, and one is coming up. And their programming was very strong, but we also, my oldest one, I think she had 3 different pastors because of transition of leadership during that time, but the kids stayed in it. The kid, the message is still the same. And the program is established. They just had a different person leading, my daughter Annie, but Margaret's doing it right now, and I was here actually for a confirmation night, not for confirmation, I stay in my lane. But these kids are running all over, it's great to see the activity in the church. So again, I don't want to paint this rosy picture like we're fine, everything's great, but it may not be as dire as it, I don't know, it's hard to know what perspective you're all sitting there with, but I want to make sure that there's a balance of information that there's work to be done, but there's also a lot of good things happening. And in the interest of time, because I know we have, the last thing is what should we stop doing? The playground got a lot of responses. The narrative lectionary got some responses. Reconsidering, I put everything under reconsidering RIC, anything that dealt with anything that touched that issue. So while these are all responses that came back, they came back as we should stop doing, we have to balance that with what we should keep doing and remember that change is hard. So maybe some of these things fall off, maybe they do, but the responses to the stops are, some people like this, some people like that. And so it's a little hard to, this is what the responses are, and I will stop yabbering.
And just note that while playground and narrative lectionary are on the what we should stop doing, they are also very large on what we should continue doing. So it's a very split answer, and again, you kind of have to take the information with a grain of salt, knowing how many people filled out the survey, and that everybody has their own opinions, and your one specific opinion isn't necessarily reflective of everybody who is in the church. Yep.
So give me 3 takeaways.
Yeah. Oh, give me.
I
thought you were going to give me the takeaways.
I do that in my day job. But I want you to tell me what you think the 2 or 3 takeaways are from this.
I think one of them is that our worship is solid and people really enjoy the worship that we as a congregation have, and that we should continue doing that. I think another one is that there's many things that we do and that we do well and that people enjoy, whether that's worship or children's ministry or whatever the case may be, but also that we have room for change and room for improvement and time and space to kind of look at those. We have room to build and room to plan for the future, and it's challenging. We know there's a lot of change in the last few years, and we're trying to balance that and see where to go from there.
I'll add one.
Great.
I think and I see a hand in the back. So working on engagement is critical. So that's a big one. But what I'm seeing through all of this is engagement, whether it's saying hello to someone you don't know at a service, whether it's providing a way to get together in smaller cohorts, making people feel a part of this place, and getting broader reach into our congregation to do that. So that's a big one, but I think that if I see a theme in all of this, it is working on it, continuing to build our engagement. Yes.
I just asked, and it's a good follow-up to what Dan said, what are your next steps?
Good, next steps. Okay, so our most immediate next step is going to having small listening sessions in January where we pose similar questions and dig into different groups of people. We have the February council meeting. We'll be looking at strategic objectives we're going to be looking back at what was visioning, what should we be doing, and where should we be going. So those are bigger themes. Just in case people haven't been along the ride for the last few years, the council's changed its kind of structure and nature in that the council's very strategic and sets broader strategic objectives of where we want to see action and the church moving. And then we work with, we pass those on to staff who action and find the tactical ways to do that. We're not picking programs, we're not picking napkin colors, we are at the broader level of trying to, so all of this is trying to inform us. We did this great visioning work years ago. It comes up all the time and it felt stale. And so that's why we want to give deference to all the work that was done in visioning, but also recalibrate to where we are today. So Ann, did you have a comment? I thought I saw your hand.
Yeah, I read the survey results. I read all of the results that you all wrote in. They were very hard to read. But I want to point out that the survey came out, I think, week 1 of the Playground and week 1 of the narrative lectionary. It'd be interesting to see if people feel differently after having experienced both of those things for more than 1 week. And the other thing I want to say is, along with what you were saying, Laura, about how we're St. Matthew's, it concerns me a little bit about how big the word lead pastor was on the things that we need to do. Because if we think that that person's going to come in and like things are going to be what they were before the pandemic, or that the numbers are going to go up, or all of a sudden there's going to be a bunch of babies around, or whatever. We're setting that person up for failure. Yeah. And the last thing we want to do is set up this new person for failure. And the other thing I want to say is, if you very strongly put in a response like, get rid of the narrative lectionary, it's terrible, why are we doing this? And there were responses just like that. You should know that there were also responses that sounded like, the narrative lectionary is amazing, we should keep doing it. And the same for the playground. It's terrible, the kids aren't paying any attention, why are we doing this? And my kids love it, it's great. So that makes a survey really difficult to read, right? Like, there are people just as passionate on one end of the spectrum as they are on the other. So I just wanted to point that out. And the thing about the lead pastor.
too.
Yeah, thank you. And the lead pastor is, I think that's very, very good perspective, because leadership is needed, but it's not the magic wand. So, yeah.
If you want a simple answer, there's someone that needs a new era as well as this church. Call Taylor Swift. People pass the basket, it'll be a gift to
Okay,
her.
who's got a
She doesn't
number?
need the money.
So Taylor Swift themed worship?
They'll bring the kids.
Any other concluding thoughts? We're running past time, so if people have to go. I respect that, but
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for all the work that went into putting that together.